Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup podcast here live on the Cover One YouTube channel each and every Monday night at 7 p.m. or subsequently wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined this and every week by Cover One features writer Rob Quinn. And today we have to talk about I guess we don't have to talk about, right? We're here on our own free will, right? If free will even exists. The game was so bad that I'm now having an existential crisis as to I'm questioning life, I'm questioning society, I'm questioning things that I've never questioned before because the Buffalo Bills lost to the Indianapolis Colts by the score of 41-15. Jonathan Taylor scored 5 touchdowns. Okay. And other bad things happened. So today, Rob and I are going to discuss our takeaways from this game. We're not going to talk about what went right. We're going to talk about what went wrong. And maybe we'll do a lot of Thanksgiving talk just so we can end on like a sane note, right? We can get out of here a little bit more excited than we've entered here. So, Rob, how are you today?
I'm doing well. You know, our seemingly bi-weekly grieving session here on the Cover One Roundup. But like you said, Jonathan Taylor scored 5 touchdowns. Not only did I have to watch that on the game, but my opponent in fantasy football also had Jonathan Taylor. So it was a double whammy of suck for me yesterday. But yeah, we're going to break down the game and talk about the couple things that went right and a lot of things that went wrong. And then, like you said, Thanksgiving on Thursday. So we have a quick turnaround to kind of wash this from our hands and move on.
William writes, no sports talk, radio or TV for me until after Thursday. That's how I am as well. But I'm like the whole week. Like I will not watch a sports talk radio show or watch a radio show. You know what I mean? Until after the Bills win another game. So for me, it could be, next year. That's a joke. But yeah, as Scott writes, perhaps never again. Maybe I just will never tune into one again, right? It hasn't worked out so far. So before we get into this game, because we have thoughts, we have comments, as everyone does, as everyone has made their thoughts clear, and we'll make ours clear. But before we do that, this show and Cover One in general are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. So, Rob, could you tell us a little bit about Underdog?
Yeah, Underdog Fantasy is an awesome fantasy sports app. They do daily fantasy sports, player props, which I've been playing heavy all year long. Hit one last night for the first time in a few weeks.
Hey.
So just bang the overs on the Sunday night football game. So you can too. Use the promo code COVER1, get a free $10 with a deposit of at least $25. This promotion is coming to an end shortly. So if you haven't signed up yet, definitely do it. It's awesome. It's fun to play. Daily fantasy sports, best ball, and props. They're super fun, awesome app. So check it out.
Again, that is promo code COVER1. Lone Wolf writes, what went right? The players didn't have to have a quiet ride home on a plane. Just hop in your car and go home. Are you telling me that the fans weren't at the airport last night to welcome this team home? I didn't see that if they were. Can you imagine if this were an away game? That would be the first game in how many weeks that did fans go after the Jacksonville game? I don't remember.
I don't know.
I don't remember. If they didn't deserve it if they did, but so no, we'll get into I think we are going to bring up the Jacksonville game a few times on this podcast because there are themes, right? There are things that are repeating and they're becoming patterns, right? That they're not just one-offs regarding this football team. So I think we're not gonna waste any more time here with nonsense. Yeah, the Buffalo Bills lost to the Indianapolis Colts yesterday. They didn't just lose; they got smacked in the mouth, 41-15. Rob, you and I were talking off air. Like from the first drive, it was pretty obvious how this game was going to go. I think even pregame, I think it wasn't obvious, but it was a realistic possibility that this game was going to go in this direction. I don't think anyone thought that the Bills were going to lose 41-15, but like I was talking to people, I went to the game with my friend Nick and his girlfriend, and I talked before the game, I was like, I think the Bills could lose. And he's like, I don't think so. But like, if you think about it, right? Like exactly I'm just going to go off on what I thought. What I thought was going to happen, how I thought they were going to lose the game is how they lost the game, right? They didn't have Star Lotulelei. They didn't have Tremaine Edmonds. So I was like, Jonathan Taylor's just going to run all over them. That's probably going to happen. Even if the Bills win, Jonathan Taylor is going to have a good game. Unless the Bills can get out ahead incredibly early and take Jonathan Taylor out of the game, Jonathan Taylor is going to put up numbers. And he put up more numbers than I think anyone could have anticipated, right? That's a near legendary game from Jonathan Taylor, borderline historic. And then just offensively, they really couldn't get anything going, right? Like Indianapolis, I don't want to say they have a good pass defense, right? But they forced takeaways, and they did that yesterday, intercepting 3 passes. Only 2 of them really mattered. But it's just frustrating because the blueprint for how Indianapolis was going to win this game was so clear, was so obvious. And that's what happened. And the Bills still lost 41-15.
Yeah, it was rough. Everyone all week long, you knew the game plan. You're going to run Jonathan Taylor. You're behind that big offensive line. I think we thought there would be a little bit more passing, but after the first drive of the game, you saw that offensive line was getting movement at the point of attack. Jonathan Taylor was just too good getting to the second level, and the Bills just didn't have an answer. And it was a rough watch, especially without Tremaine Edmonds, without Star Latule up the middle. You knew it was going to be difficult, but the Colts just made it look too easy. And 41-15 for a team that had a discussion 2 weeks ago and had a lot of tough talks and look in the mirror moments and the team meetings and all that went right out the window. They smacked the Jets in the mouth, and then in turn they got smacked by a real team in the mouth. And that's becoming a theme for this season, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it really was discouraging to see them lose to a playoff contending team like the Colts.
Right. Like, we'll get into that. We'll get into it because there's things that we can say, and we will say them later. So let's just focus on my first takeaway here, because I think you only have one takeaway and my second takeaway. They kind of are complementary of each other. It's kind of one conversation. So we'll focus on Jonathan Taylor here. Again, borderline historic game from the Colts running back. 32 attempts on the ground, 185 yards, 4 touchdowns rushing touchdowns in total. Had 35 touches for 35 total touches, 204 total yards, 5 total touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry. And it was just, again, early on, you knew he was going into the game. You knew he was going to be the focus of their offensive attack, because he's always the focus of their offensive attack. Like, they didn't try to kid anyone as to what they were going to do. They just were better than the Bills yesterday. And Jonathan Taylor, again, ate them alive. Good scheming from the Colts, right? Like, let's not just pretend like, Jonathan Taylor single-handedly beat the Bills, because they had a good game from the offensive line. Nice play designs from Frank Reich and who's their offensive coordinator. I wrote it down, but I lost it. Whoever their offensive coordinator is, I think his last name's Breida. Yeah, Marcus Breida. Dan Orlovsky posted a video, just like creative play calls, right? They had like a zone read RPO crossover, which was interesting, and just like interesting blocking schemes. So like the Colts had a good game plan, and Jonathan Taylor kind of relished in that. Jonathan Taylor was the benefit of a strong game plan, but the Buffalo defensive line was overpowered throughout much of the day. And again, that leads to Jonathan Taylor picking up 185 yards on the ground, 140 something of which were after contact. Like, even if you took away his yards that he had before contact, he still would have been the leading rusher this week. Like, because the next leader was DeAndre Swift with like 120, and Jonathan Taylor had 140 after contact. You can't do that. You cannot do that.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor is a beast, and I think he staked his claim as the best running back in the NFL right now. Obviously, Derrick Henry's out. Another running back that the Bills really struggled with. But unlike the Titans game, it wasn't a 76-yard touchdown run that ate up half of his yardage. Jonathan Taylor, like you said, 185 rushing yards and 4 scores on the ground with those 147 yards after contact. He had 14 first down rushes yesterday, for 7 missed tackles, 6 runs of 10+ yards. So it wasn't like he just had a huge yardage gain that really skewed his numbers. He was consistently getting big plays on the ground, big chunk plays. And the play design by the Colts were great. They were just running power football with pulling guards, pulling tackles, and tight ends, and with weigh-in blocks, running a lot of counters. And the Bills just had no answer. I think a guy that kind of struggled and got exposed is AJ Klein. He had a great game last week against the Jets, but against an offensive line and guys like Ryan Kelly and a quality tight end and Jack Doyle that can get out to the second level, he was just lost And you can't really blame AJ Klein, but he was just one that stuck out to me. I think Harrison Phillips struggled a bit. He had some great plays, but he had a lot where he was just pushed around. I know Eric posted that clip of Ryan Kelly just discarding him into the turf, and everyone's talking about that. But I think he just surrendered too much ground in the run game. And once you let Jonathan Taylor get to the second level, man, it's a wrap. And the Bills just did that too often yesterday. So they need to find an answer, because yesterday's game plan was not it, and they got exposed and they got punched in the mouth, and it was ugly.
Yeah, like with Jonathan Taylor, like I can't, like, even after this game, right? Even after the Bills just allowed Jonathan Taylor to rush for 185 yards and 4 touchdowns, I will not say that the Bills have a bad run defense, because it is only the best of the best who other teams struggle to contain that are putting up these monster games against them, right? Like, even if they face an average running back or above average running backs, they are, or slightly above average running backs, they are taken out of the game, right? Like Michael Carter when they played the Jets, right? We can agree Michael Carter's a solid running back, was basically a non-factor. Granted, the Jets kind of got out of the game early, so they didn't focus on the running game, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they're not really, the Bills are a solid team against the run, generally speaking, but it's when they play these Derrick Henrys, these Jonathan Taylors, that they put up these monster games, which leads me into like the circumstances surrounding this game from Jonathan Taylor, right? It was just like a medley of, for lack of a better term, shit. Like, the Bills were without Star Lotulelei and Tremaine Edmonds, right? So you tell me before the game, hey, the Bills are without their middle linebacker and one of their better run defenders, and they're going up against the best running back in the league. I'm like, oh, that's probably not going to go well for them. And then you combine that with Jonathan Taylor being Jonathan Taylor, plus the good, their offensive line and the good play calling, and that's not like a recipe for any team to succeed in that situation. But given the Bills, given their aspirations as a Super Bowl team, like, even when the odds were stacked against them like that, I expected them to answer the call better than they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taylor came into the game, I think, with 7 straight games of 100 yards and a touchdown. And I think 100 yards and a touchdown instead of 200 yards and 5 touchdowns can keep the Bills in this game. But it was just, I mean, you've got to do better than that. And obviously Star Lotulelei and Tremaine Edmonds play a big part in that. But I do think that when they're playing these power teams, and we're going to see them coming up on the schedule, obviously 2 games against New England, the Saints, they might not have Alvin Kamara, but they're a strong rushing team as well. The Panthers with Christian McCaffrey coming up. There's some teams that run the ball effectively. And I think now it's a reason to be concerned about the Bills defense, not only about their defense, but about their playoff hopes right now. If they make a playoff, if they get a playoff berth, it's going to be because they shut down opposing rushing attacks. And right now that's up in the air. And it's a question of whether or not they can do it. Jonathan Taylor's a great running back, but when you allow the type of game that he did, I think it leaves a sour taste in your mouth for all of us fans and analysts. And it begs the question whether this team can compete with strong rushing attacks going forward.
Right. A lot of people are questioning the Bills' physicality now because, and rightfully so. Like, I think Sean McDermott was asked yesterday in the postgame, like, are you a physically tough team? And he said, I'd like to think so. And then he said today, like, no, like, the tape shows that's not what we are right now. And they're not, right? Like, when they get matched up against these teams that play them physical, the Bills are getting just overmatched.
Yeah. And I don't know where the issue really lies in that. You know, they have a kind of smaller defensive line, kind of undersized linebackers. And, you know, the game in the NFL kind of is a pendulum, right? A couple years ago, it was all power run, and then teams went to the spread offense. And then now the linebackers are smaller, the defensive backs are smaller. And now the teams that are ahead of the curve, most notably the Patriots, as we've seen, kind of as they always are, going back to that power punch you in the mouth type of football, and it's working. And the Bills defense is getting exposed by that, I think. But overall, I think they, like you said, they're still a great defense. I don't think this one game defines who they are, but physicality is something that they're going to have to take a look at, because it's not just about getting hard hits, right? It's about, you know, standing your ground on the defensive line and holding your gap and not allowing a game to spiral out of control like they did yesterday. You have to fight, you have to get back, and you have to not just unravel on both sides of the ball, really, because we've seen this on offense too, with Josh Allen every other week talking about how Stephon Diggs needs to calm him down and all this. I think being a tough football team is just as much mental as it is physical. And the Bills just don't have that really in either aspect right now.
Yeah, another thing I want to bring up because people are talking about nickel defense, them playing exclusively nickel yesterday. Stacked box, right? Per PFF, Jonathan Taylor ran the ball 11 times against loaded boxes when 8 or more defenders were in the box. And this not like in the open field, right? Not near the red zone. He had 54 yards against stacked boxes. Not a recipe for success, right? When you are going to stop the run, when you have 8 in the box, and he still picks up 5 yards a carry. Like that's is there anything else to say about Jonathan Taylor other than it's just a crazy game and he is the reason why the Colts won? Because like I said earlier, right, like he's not the sole reason, but I mean, many factors go into why he was the major reason why they won. I think that's a better way to put it. But like Carson Wentz, 11 of 20 passes, right? He wasn't a non-factor. He made a few nice throws, but he's not why they won. I saw Colts Twitter asking if Carson Wentz is better than Josh Allen. No, but like he's like Jonathan Taylor is the reason why they won this game. So is there anything else we have to say about him?
Yeah, I just think the discussion about going out of nickel is just, I mean, hindsight is 20/20, obviously, but I think if Tyrell Dodson is on the field instead of Taron Johnson, you're getting the same result, if not worse. I mean, Taron Johnson is a fantastic run defender. Eric posted some clips of him today being a beast against the run against Jonathan Taylor yesterday. So Jonathan Taylor's a beast. That offensive line is incredible. And I think that whether you're in a nickel or a 4-3 base, it's not going to make a difference. And Leslie Frazier said that today. He said it wasn't about the scheme. It was about guys just getting their ass whooped up front and not winning one-on-one matchups, because that's what it came down to. You put Tyrell Dodson on the field, you're getting the same result. I think it comes down to a combination of missing Star Lotulelei and Tremaine Edmonds, like you said, 2 of the team's best run defenders, and Jonathan Taylor just being a stud. And that was the recipe for disaster for the Buffalo Bills yesterday. It wasn't Tyrell Dodson was not making a grand difference in the game.
Right. Like, yeah, we were talking off air and you were like, people wanted a third linebacker. I was like, do they have a third linebacker? they have Tyrell Dodson, but putting Tyrell Dodson in the game yesterday, like you said, I don't think that really limits his chances. And people are saying stack box with 4-3 is different than the Bills stack box. Yes. Like just reading comments about defensive formations made me think about the stacked box stat. That's why I brought it up there. So moving on to, I think just we both have this takeaway. So I will intro mine and then I'll throw over to you because I'm sure you have thoughts. So my second takeaway is, when do we hit the panic button? According to Josh Allen, not yet. Josh Allen said we're not in panic mode yet. The Bills are not in panic mode yet. They just need to learn from this game and move on. Deion Dawkins said they have to learn from this game and flush it. Which, like, as long as they learn from it, right? Like, don't just be like, oh, that happened, let's move on. It's like, no, learn from it. It's like the old Rex Ryan bury the ball story, where he was like, he went and physically buried a ball in order to move on from it. Like, if I hear that Sean McDermott buried a ball at practice, or if he buries a ball at practice tomorrow, we have issues. But I don't think he's going to do that. But I don't know. I personally don't think it's time to hit the panic button. I'll get into that, but I'll throw to you, Rob. What is your takeaway that is related to this one?
So this is tough. So my takeaway is just wondering if the Bills are frauds. And I don't think they are just yet, for the simple fact that we know what this team is. We've seen them just curb stomp bad teams, and even average teams aren't typically capable of putting up 40 points 3 times in 10 games, regardless of who the opponent is. So I do think that the Bills are good enough to make the playoffs. Do I think they're Super Bowl contenders right now? No. Do I think they can be? Absolutely. I just don't think I think this is a team that is one-dimensional on offense right now. They have no semblance of a running game whatsoever. Their offensive line is a mess. Their defense has been exposed twice against strong rushing attacks. Their 6 wins this season have come against teams with a combined record of 23-40. Their 4 losses are against conference opponents. So it's going to get tricky in terms of the playoff picture. And I think that the combination of bad omens that they've had this year is going to lead to a lot of excitement as the season goes on. You know, they have the toughest stretch of games coming up. They have a Saints, which is a tough team, even with Trevor Siemian at quarterback. They have a great defense playing in New Orleans on a short week. You've got Monday night against New England. You've got Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay against Tom Brady. Everyone knows about that. Then going to Foxborough.
Does he have a good track record against Buffalo? I don't remember.
I'll have to check the history there, but I think he's done all right. Mm-hmm. Then they play a Panthers team that seems rejuvenated with Cam Newton, and it's going to be tough. And I just think the Bills need to destroy the Saints on Thursday to really alleviate some of these questions that are around the team. And it would be easier to flush the loss, as Deion Dawkins says, if they didn't have this same rationale for a loss 2 weeks ago against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Very true.
So I feel like you get one of those a month and not really every other week where you can just flush a loss and move on and have these tough conversations, because it's too soon. It's too soon to have this again where you need to look in the mirror and go backwards and have a players only team meeting like you did this 2 weeks ago. So just come out, play football. The fundamentals of Sean McDermott, I know it's cliche, but it's real. I mean, it's making tackles. They missed 14 tackles yesterday. The penalties, they had 7 more penalties. They're the second most penalized team in the NFL now. So it's the little things that add up to big things. I think we said the same thing last week. It's just these little issues that the Bills just keep biting themselves in the foot. So I think they're their own worst enemy right now. I don't think the opponents are more scary than the Bills' blunders, if you know what I mean. So that's where I'm at right now with the Bills being frauds.
Right. No, they're beating themselves. Like, I mean, yesterday, the Jags didn't beat the Bills. The Bills beat themselves in that game, right? So Buffalo technically won. They should be 7-3. Right. But yes, the Jags didn't do anything in that game that was particularly impressive. The Bills just kind of out mediocred themselves. Whereas yesterday, the Colts just, had a good plan. Jonathan Taylor took care of business. But again, the Bills had 7 penalties, right? Like they had, I think it was 14 missed tackles, 4 turnovers, right? That's beating yourself, right? Or that's at least not helping yourself win. Right. At the very least, that's not putting yourself in a position to succeed. People are going, there's someone in chat saying, yes, you hit the panic button now. Yeah, this thing is going to blow, get out. Like, I don't know if I would, like I said a couple weeks ago, like months ago now, regarding Josh Allen and a panic button. Again, can you imagine that? I'm thinking back on parts of the season in which I was like, Josh Allen, maybe he's the biggest problem. He's not, but there's other problems now, unfortunately. But no, I never thought Josh Allen was the biggest problem. But I said something along the lines of like, I haven't pressed the panic button, but it's in the Amazon cart. Well, now the panic button's ordered. It's on the desk. My hand's hovering over it, but I'm not pressing it yet because, like you said, Rob, we've seen what this team can do. We've seen this team click on all cylinders, right? We've seen at different points in the season the defense be dominant, right? The secondary forced turnovers consistently, right? All DBs had takeaways a week ago. We've seen this run defense shut down opposing running backs. We've seen the offensive line at time played at an above average level. We've seen the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs connection is still strong. Emmanuel Sanders is good. The run game at times has looked competent, right? Like individually, these things have flashed this season. Not necessarily all at the same time, but they have flashed, which like, if everything clicks, if they get hot at the right time, if they stay healthy, and someone said earlier, like, tell me one AFC team that hasn't had an abysmal game this year. I think Greg said on the post game show yesterday, like no one wants to win the top seed in the AFC. It's just like there is not a dominant team in the AFC this year. There is not a team that is running away with it, right? Like the Bills have struggled as of late, but so has every other AFC team. So I don't think like the Bills losing or the Bills looking like this isn't like, it's obviously not good, but given the other things that are happening in the AFC right now, it's not it's not panic button pressing time. But again, that being said, like you can argue both sides here. You can genuinely make a good argument for both sides, whether or not you should press the panic button or not. Because again, this is their second pitiful performance in 3 weeks. Against the Jags, you go out there and lay an egg, and then in this game, you don't even put up a fight on your home field against the Colts, right? And this is a game where people were talking in the Cover One Slack. Like the Colts just came out with an energy because of what happened in last year's playoff game, right? Mm-hmm. They wanted to come out there and show that, like, oh no, we were the better team last year and we're the better team this year, right? You play with that edge, obviously, and the Bills just didn't match that edge. The Bills obviously don't have the same remorse towards the Colts that the Colts have towards the Bills, but you should be able to, get up for this game, right? Prove that you are the better team, right? That the wild card game wasn't a fluke, but they weren't able to do that. So, and like what's leading me towards this, or what is making me open to the idea of pressing the panic button or to declaring the Bills frauds is that these two performances have come against. Or one against the Jags, two against a good Colts team, but like the cupcake part of their schedule's over. Mm-hmm. Like if this were the college football season, right? The warm-up games are over. You're getting into your conference games now, right? Like the real season starts. Obviously, they've played AFC teams, but I mean in terms of like they're playing good teams now, right? New Orleans, who not a great team, but a solid team. Which Trevor Simeon's playing, so we'll see. But like, Tampa Bay, 2 against the Jets, or not the Jets. Oh, geez, 2 against the Pats. Sorry. But like, you're getting into the part of the season where like you're getting into the big boy games now. You're getting into the games where you need to prove that you are a good team. You need to win these games, and the fact that you're going into those games with a 6-4 record, with 4 conference losses, not very reassuring. But again, just given what we have seen from this team at its highs, I cannot at this point say it's panic button time.
Yeah, there's really no room for error coming up because they put themselves in a spot where these are almost all must-win games. And it's funny because you look and there's really not a dominant team in the AFC. Every one of these teams that are ahead of the Bills or just behind them has embarrassing losses. And it's really neck and neck. I mean, the Titans just lost to the Texans. So, I mean, it's tough, but it's going to come down to the wire. If the Bills drop another game or two, they don't have the tiebreaker against the Steelers or the Titans or the Colts. And so these games coming up are going to be so important, not only for just righting the ship, but staying alive and potentially missing the playoffs after obviously the most anticipated season in Bills history. So it'll be fun. Let's just leave it at that.
Will it be? Timothy writes that Jack's loss could come back to haunt them. Add to it all the Bills losses versus AFC teams, a key tiebreaker. Yes, every single one of their losses, sans Jacksonville, is to a team who hypothetically, should this trend continue, they will be competing with for a wild card spot. Right? Like Pittsburgh is in the thick of it right now. Tennessee or, Tennessee, Indianapolis. One of them is going to win the AFC South. The other one's probably going to be a wild card team. So these losses will have playoff ramifications ultimately when you didn't think that like you would be in the hunt for a wild card spot, I guess. Like you just thought you were going to get in maybe first seed at the very least as AFC East champions. Now you're the 7th seed in the AFC, right? There's 7 teams now that make the playoffs.
Yeah, 7 seed. Yeah, they went from 2 to 7 yesterday. So but I will say last year, I think it was week 10 or week 11, the Bucks lost 38-3 to the Saints to fall to 6-4. So went on to win. We all know what happened from there. So we'll see.
Yeah, like it's and that's why it's like it's not difficult, but like just given what we saw yesterday, right? It's easy to just be like, oh no, they're frauds, right? Like no team, like I think Matt Rule said something where it's like, or Matt Rule said today, you're not a playoff team if you allow 190 rushing yards, and the Bills allowed like north of 200 total yesterday. So according to Matt Rule, the Bills are not a playoff team, and they're playing the the Carolina Panthers in a couple weeks. So bulletin board material. Thank you, Matt Rule. But like, it's easy to sit here today and be like, everything's falling apart. The sky is falling. They might not even make the playoffs. But we know, as Josh Allen said, we know that this team has the capability of playing better than it did yesterday. Will they? That remains to be seen. But we know that they are a better team than they showed yesterday. But again, if they're consistently showing that they're not, maybe they're not. But as of right now, I cannot say that they are not, or that they maybe they're not a Super Bowl contender, but they're still a playoff team. If they're not a playoff team, I don't know what this podcast is going to devolve into.
I agree.
It's not going to be great. It's not going to be great. So does that wrap up fraud discussion?
I think so.
All right, fraud alert, fraud protection. Bills currently have fraud protection, thankfully, but we'll see if it holds on to next week. So, here, let me grab a sip of water quick. Sorry. I want to talk about what went right. The one thing that went right in this week's game, that was Matt Breida. Matt Breida played. It's sad when, like, the one thing that went right, the one thing that I can safely say went right, was a running back played 18 snaps. Matt Breida played on 18 snaps yesterday. 5 carries, 57 yards. Also had a reception for 106. Nope, that's false. That would have been crazy. 1 reception for 16 yards. So he averaged 11.2 yards per touch. Last 2 games, 12 total touches for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? So Matt Breida is a guy who hadn't seen that much play through the first part of the season. Last 2 games have gotten him involved a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. And I think it has not paid dividends, obviously, but he has looked good, right? He brings something to that backfield. He brings speed. I think he brings vision. I think the last 2 games he's looked probably like their best running back. Devin Singletary has come on as of late. I've been impressed by what I've seen from him, but I think Matt Breida, at least through the last 2 games and probably this week, offers more than Zach Moss does. I would like to see Matt Breida's snap count increase because, again, as Sean McDermott said today in his press conference, he's doing something with the ball. When they give him the ball, he is making plays, averaging, again, 11 yards per carry. That obviously is not sustainable, I don't think. I don't think you can ask any running back to average 11 yards per carry. But, like, if you give him the ball more and that drops to 4 or 5 or 6, that's still good, right? That's still something that you would want from a running back. So I think, like, from what I've seen so far, again, granted, it's 12 touches, right? I'm not crowning Matt Breida after 12 touches, but I like what I've seen from him in this limited sample size, and I would like him to be either the 1A or the 1B this week against New Orleans, or until he shows me otherwise, until he shows me that he shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think Breida needs to be seeing significant reps on offense for the simple fact that regardless of your thoughts on Devin Singletary or Zach Moss, they just don't have the athleticism or speed that Breida does. Mm-hmm. And right now with the weak offensive line, not really being able to get out to the second level and sustain blocks, Breida just has the speed to hit the hole, whether that's between the tackles or get to the edge and make a play downfield by the sideline. Because Zach Moss, we all know, he's just getting bottled up behind the line of scrimmage in recent weeks more often. And Devin Singletary, he's nice, but he's probably an average, just slightly below average back at best. And, like, if you have great blocking, I think that Devin Singletary can really make an impact. But without it, we're going to get the performances that we've seen because he's just not a game-changing running back, right? Matt Breida, I don't think he's an elite running back, but he has elite speed. And right now, that's all the Bills can ask for. Like Sean McDermott said, he's doing something with the ball, and that's more than you can say for either Zach Moss or Devin Singletary. And right now, I think you need to feed Breida, not only in terms of snaps, but touches as well. So,
yeah, John Herring writes, I just lost it. You can't give him just 5 carries when he is producing. I agree. Like, again, as I said, obviously 11 yards per carry that's not sustainable. He's not going to get that every single play. But, like, give him more opportunities, right? Give him the opportunity to continue to produce 11 yards per play. Like, again, 18 snaps, second most out of running backs yesterday. I think he had a few more than Zach Moss. So his snap count is increasing, but again, 5 carries, but they got down late. So obviously you don't expect them to run the ball all that much, or they got down early. So you don't expect them to focus on the run game. But I would like to see this week a bit more focus Maybe not. I don't want the game plan to shift to like run heavy or run focus because Josh Allen is still their best offensive player. So obviously I don't want the ball out of his hands that often, but I would like Matt Breida to have the ball in his hands a bit more often, maybe more than 5 times or 6 times per game, maybe, like 10, 11. Let's see if he does anything with it. So Rob, what is your, I don't think you had anything that went right. So what for you went wrong? But besides everything we've talked about.
Besides everything we've talked about,
yeah.
I don't think there's any excuse in the game that was this out of hand to only target Stephon Diggs 6 times. That was 5th on the team. I just don't think there's an excuse for that. I know that Josh Allen's going to say he's going to throw to the open guy, and there's receivers all over the place. But Stephon Diggs is the receiver that you traded for to make these types of impacts. You paid Josh Allen to get the ball to Stephon Diggs, right? And he had 2 touchdowns. We saw what he could do in the limited targets he was getting. But Stephon Diggs is a player that even if he's not open, he's open, right? I mean, that's the type of receiver he is. He is elite. Mm-hmm. If he's single covered, it's you throw to him. And if he's double covered, you still might want to throw to him, especially when the game is out of hand as it was yesterday. So I think Stephon Diggs is a player that they need to start forcing the ball to because this is a guy, there's no reason why he should not have 10 targets a game, especially if you're throwing 35 times.
Right, and especially after last week, right? When we were on this podcast saying, Allen and Diggs are back, baby. This is Diggs' best game as a Bill. He had how many targets, how many receptions, over 100 yards. He's back. He had like 2 gains of 50 yards or whatever. Like we were saying that the connection is back. And for them to follow that up with a game in which he's targeted 6 times, like obviously that's not solely on Allen. There's, that's on play calling and stuff to an extent, but there is no reason in any game where Stephon Diggs should only be targeted 6 times. And for him, in any game, especially not one where it's coming off the game he had last week and in a game where they were down by this much and you're passing, as you said, 35 times. There's no reason why only 6 of those targets should be going to your best wide receiver. It's insane. It truly is insane. And again, he had 2 touchdowns, right? But so Allen was looking to him or the Bills were getting him the ball in the red zone. Maybe they should have used him more to get them to the red zone, if that makes sense. Just use him more. Use him. You have him. You have one of the best receivers in the NFL. Use him. Okay. Anything else on Stephon Diggs?
No.
Salah is a clown. How do we get to Jets talk in chat? I stopped paying attention to chat for a couple seconds. We got Rex Ryan in the chat. Robert Saleh's a clown.
No, they made up. They made up.
They?
So, yeah. Rex Ryan said he's never been more impressed with the coach. So they met and talked, and Rex Ryan was swayed.
I find that hard to believe. I'm sure Rex Ryan talked to Rob Ryan a couple times. You mean to tell me Robert Saleh is more impressive than Rob Ryan?
People are talking.
People are talking about a lot of things. If you read our chat today, the people we're not going to get into it, but I want to talk about turnovers, right? I forget who wrote in the Cover One Twitter chat yesterday, but someone made a really good point, and I apologize that I didn't look at the picture again. I was at the game, maybe 1 or 2 beers, so I really wasn't focused on who was saying what. But someone said any football cliche that you can apply it to this game, and you're right, which is exactly. And this one, if you turn the ball over, you're not going to win the football game. The Bills turned the ball over 4 times yesterday. Again, only 3 of them really mattered because the last one, Mitch Trubisky, was a last-minute pick or whatever, or garbage time pick. It doesn't matter. But yes, the Bills turned the ball over 4 total times. The first one was a Josh Allen interception in the first quarter. I think, was it on their first drive after a few penalties and they got moved back? And Josh Allen had a 3-man rush, so not a lot of pressure, had a lot of time, made a bad decision, threw it into double coverage to Gabe Davis, I believe. Ball got picked off. Then the Isaiah McKenzie fumble, which was something that certainly happened, which was crazy. And then third quarter, Allen throws another interception where he gets pressured and he just chucked it up to Emmanuel Sanders, who again had 2 guys on him. Ball gets picked off. Colts score touchdowns off of all of those interceptions or all of those turnovers. Sorry, 21-point swing right there. 21 points off of those turnovers. You're not going to win many football games if you're turning the ball over 4 times. You're going to win even fewer games if you are allowing your your opponent to score off of all the turnovers that matter. If your opponent's getting points off of all of them, you're not going to win many games. And again, Sean McDermott would be the first one to tell you that. But again, this is the second time in 3 weeks where like they ran into turnover trouble against Jacksonville. Obviously, the defense stopped more of those, right? They only scored, or Jacksonville only scored 9 points 2 weeks ago. But in this game, 21 points off turnovers. So that's not a recipe for success again.
Yeah, and just the sequences of plays with those turnovers. Like the Bills were, I think it was a 7-0 game on the first drive, and then you're in their territory, and then there's the false start on Ford, and then the holding call, I think, on Morse, and then the interception. And then with the fumble, it was right off a touchdown as well, or was it a field goal?
Field goal.
Field goal. It was off a field goal.
Yeah, it was 17-7.
Yeah, it was 17-7, and then you're okay. You might get the double dip. Nope, fumble, touchdown, and then missed the field goal on the next drive. So just awful swing of the game right there.
Tyler Bass. What's David wrote a article on Tyler Bass this week about how Tyler Bass is having this great season. Jay Feely was on the Cover One film room saying Tyler Bass is doing so well because his holder is much better. And then, then this game happens. Not saying, it was.
I blame David.
David, he's not here to defend himself, but he doesn't have to be. We're going to slander him anyway. This is your fault, David. This is on you. You need to send a formal apology to Tyler Bass, please. People are talking about the penalties in chat. Again, 7 penalties for 50-something yards, as you said, Rob. Now the second most penalized team in the league, and I think they have, they've played 1 fewer game than the other teams ahead of them, or the teams tied above them, or whatever. So, not good, right? And for a team that's whose head coach preaches discipline, preaches fundamentals, for this to be a consistent issue, it's upsetting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think 4 or 5 of the penalties were before the snap or after the snap. So they're dumb penalties. This is what we talked about after the Jaguars game. Just dumb, avoidable penalties, the unnecessary roughnesses, the unsportsmanlike conducts, the false starts, offsides, things like that. Those are come down to coaching and discipline. The ticky-tack calls mid-play, some interference, things like that you can put on the refs a little bit sometimes, but these are just avoidable, and the Bills are getting far too many of them.
We're only 40 minutes in, but I think we've said what we need to say about this Indianapolis Colts game. It just wasn't good. Did you see that Jim Irsay gave Bills fans autograph? I love it.
Did you get one?
Unfortunately, no, I did not see Jim Irsay, though if I did, I would have gone crazy. I went crazy for Marshawn Lynch yesterday. I wore my childhood Marshawn Lynch jersey, but unfortunately, I didn't get to see Beast Mode up close. I entered an in-stadium contest to see him, to meet him, and that's why I stayed until the 4th quarter, because I was thinking okay, no one else can be here. No one else can still be here. They've sent messages to hundreds of other people who won this competition before me, and they're all not here. So I'm going to meet Marshawn Lynch by default. Unfortunately, did not. But I think that's what I was most upset about, right? Marshawn Lynch is my favorite childhood football player. And the fact that this is the game they put in the return of my favorite player in Buffalo Bills history, maybe in football history, the history of the NFL, and this is what he sees, unfortunate.
It just makes sense. It's like he never left, right?
Yeah.
The game reminiscent of the 2007 to 10 Bills there.
Yep. Fred Jackson was with him, and arguably Fred Jackson got a bigger applause than Marshawn Lynch.
Of course.
Right, which
we knew that was happening. Yeah,
exactly. But there's a video that the Bills posted before the game of Marshawn Lynch and Fred Jackson on the field, and there were Bills players coming up to Marshawn Lynch and like dapping him up and stuff, and then Fred Jackson was just standing there. So like I don't know if these Bills players have met Fred Jackson a few times, or if just like nobody knows about Buffalo folk hero Fred Jackson. I wouldn't blame them if they didn't know, owner of Sear Restaurant Fred Jackson. But yeah, I wanted a better outing for Marshawn, as I wrote on the board back there. Marshawn should have played. I added him in the Cover One Fantasy League, League C. I added Marshawn Lynch because in my head, I was like, okay, this meeting is going to go so well. And he's going to re-fall in love with football and the Buffalo Bills, and then he's going to sign a 1-year contract before he leaves. That didn't happen, unfortunately. So my move, my high-level brain moves didn't pay off. I'm going to have to drop Marshawn this week. Or, I just start him because I suck in that league. So unfortunate that Marshawn had to see this type of game, but maybe he'll be back. I'm a big proponent of putting Marshawn Lynch on the Wall of Fame.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
Why?
Jerry Sullivan, I don't know if you saw his tweet. He was not happy that they brought Marshawn Lynch back.
Why?
His shenanigans in Buffalo are still being remembered by the great Jerry Sullivan.
The only shenanigans I remember is Marshawn Lynch going into Frank Young Sports Arena, which is a roller rink in which I used to play youth roller hockey in Orchard Park. Again, keyword, roller hockey. Marshawn Lynch going in there and asking Frank Young if he could ice skate. I love Marshawn Lynch. I want him. Sorry, Jerry Sullivan. He needs to. OJ Simpson is on the Wall of Fame, and we're drawing the line at Marshawn Lynch.
Fred Jackson will be on the wall before Marshawn Lynch will.
Oh, easy.
I'll leave it at that.
There are numerous players who will be on the Wall of Fame before Marshawn Lynch. OJ Simpson not
should not be on one of them.
Right. Okay. We got some Marshawn Lynch talk. Cotter writes, "Hey guys, the NFL is scripted." Oh. Okay. Thank you, Cotter. So we're going to talk a little bit here about the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are playing at home this Thanksgiving, this Turkey Day, against the Buffalo Bills. Marshawn Lynch, I don't think will be in attendance, but hey, crazier things have happened. So the New Orleans Saints, they are 5-5. I think they are second place or third place in the NFC South. They are, I don't want to say they're a team in transition because at times they've looked good this year. But looking at their current roster, or at least the addition of the Saints that the Bills are going to play this week, I don't know. Trevor Siemian looks in line to start. He's on the injury report, but he looks like he's going to start again for the Saints this Thursday. Alvin Kamara has been out with an MCL sprain. The Saints didn't practice today, but they put out like an estimated injury report, and he was listed as a non-participant in practice. So if you're estimated not to practice on Monday, your odds of playing on Thursday don't look very good, but we'll have to wait and see. Mark Ingram has looked okay, since returning to New Orleans. So, but he's not Alvin Kamara, not the same player whatsoever in terms of play style or quality of player. And then looking at their receiving core, Michael Thomas has been out all year, so they're being led by the likes of Deontay Harris and Marquez Callaway. Do either of those names do anything for you?
No, I mean, Marquez Callaway was a player a lot of people thought was a sleeper going into this year. With fantasy football and everything. I just need to say that I am so disappointed that we don't get to see Jameis Winston on Thanksgiving.
Devastated.
And if Kamara doesn't play too, it's just not as fun when you don't have the superstars across the field. But the Saints are they're such a weird team, right? Because they have a solid defense, but just offensively, like you said, they're in transition and they just don't have the skill players outside of Alvin Kamara to really do anything. But now that you have Trevor Siemian at quarterback, it's rough. I mean, the Eagles, the score looked a lot closer than it was. I think they scored like 22 in the fourth quarter after they were down by like 33. So they put up a fight late, but it was really out of hand early. And but I don't know. The Saints at home, you have to be worried, especially after the performance the Bills just put in. They're a strong defensive team. They have a really good secondary. Marcus Lattimore, Marcus Williams, Malcolm Jenkins. So they have some talent there. But I don't know. I think the Bills should win this game.
We've said that
We say
before
this every
about
week.
football games.
We say this every week, but
like, look, they're a better team on paper than Jacksonville. But like their offense at least doesn't scare me. Right, especially if they don't have Kamara. This offense doesn't scare me. Sorry, Marquez Callaway, again, good preseason story. Not really someone who I'm game planning around. Mark Ingram, again, used to be really good. Not someone who I'm necessarily game planning around in 2021. So again, if the Bills are facing the Trevor Siemian, Mark Ingram Saints on Thanksgiving, this defense should eat, right? They should get their Thanksgiving meal at 8 p.m. on Thursday. But with offensively, the Bills, again, you talk about their defense. Demario Davis, he has 3 sacks. Cameron Jordan has 4. They're gonna have their Diggs is gonna go up against Marshawn Lattimore, I'm sure. Like, they have a talented defense. And I don't think Spencer Brown will be back for Thursday. Again, I ask Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott will not tell you a damn thing about if Spencer Brown's going to be back. He's playing the HIPAA card every time he's asked about anyone on the COVID list. I can't talk about that. But, going off of the timeline of every other player who's ever been placed on the COVID list or who has missed a game on the COVID list, I don't think Spencer Brown will be back for Thursday. Again, I have no inside knowledge. Obviously, I'm just going based off of past trends. So, but again, I don't think the offensive line played all that bad yesterday.
Yeah, no, me neither. I think they played decently. I think they gave up 6 pressures. Darrell Williams allowed 3. Cody Ford got manhandled a couple times by DeForest Buckner, but they even really kept him in check. I think he only had 1 tackle and a pressure, but I don't think the pass rush really was the issue yesterday. Offensively, it was just the Bills could not get anything going. Like, they were just biting themselves in the foot, forcing passes. Yeah, I think the offensive line has a chance to play well, but I don't think Brown's going to play.
No, I mean, Latulele probably has a better chance at coming back, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens because it's been over a week for Latulele. So again, just wait and see. And John Feliciano is still on injured reserve. I also don't think he's been activated to come off of injured reserve. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with Feliciano. But Edmonds was on the injury report today. He was an estimated full participant. So it looks like Tremaine will be back. So that's good, I guess. Like, it's just a wait and see, right? Because on paper, Bills should win this game. But the Bills should win most games on paper. Games not played on paper. They have to go down to New Orleans on Thanksgiving. It's a good food city, right? So people might get confused, or not confused. People might get, too strung up in the Thanksgiving holiday.
Who knows? We'll see.
Who knows? Lone Wolf writes, I doubt Star plays. Either 10 days would make it Wednesday. I believe can't play with no practice. True. Okay. So I think this goes into our hot take segment. Last week, I said Bills hold Jonathan Taylor to under 75 yards. They did not. So
that was hot. That was a hot take.
Was a hot take. Yeah. People. Oh, Roman hasn't been in chat today. Roman's not here to trash my hot take. Unfortunate. So, Rob, what is your hot take for this upcoming matchup with the Saints?
All right. This is really hot. So get your oven mitts. But I'm going to say the Bills win their next 3 games. I'm saying they go down to New Orleans and win. I think that one's the most realistic. Then they host New England, first place New England, coming off 5 straight wins. I still think the Bills are a better team. Like I said earlier, these errors and losses are mostly on them. I don't think they've gotten really exposed other than this Colts game. And I think the Bills should win against the Patriots. And then I think they can beat the Bucs. I think the Saints will be the get-right game. They beat the Patriots, ride some momentum down, and beat Tom Brady. So
I was going to ask, you do realize these are good teams, correct?
I do.
But, yeah, it seems
Bills
like
are a good team. I think they're a good team.
They are. Roman got here just in time. Roman writes, I just got here. My hot take is that my oven will be at 325 degrees on Thursday so I can thoroughly and safely cook my turkey. No. I'm trying to think of a hot take on the fly here. We'll go Bills defense forces, Bills gave the ball away 4 times this week. We'll say that the Bills defense forces 4 takeaways this week. Is that a hot take?
It's hot.
4 takeaways after getting none yesterday. Bills will bounce back, take the ball away 4 times. Again, they should win. They should win this game, but hey, we'll see. Next time you see us will be a week from today, and that is like 4 or 5 days after the game. So it'll be interesting. And then the week after that is Monday Night Football, so we'll have to do something, probably a preview show. We're just trying to think ahead here. So thank you guys. No way that happens. The people are saying no. The people are saying no to 4 takeaways from the Bills defense. What's wrong with 4 takeaways? They had 5 last week, and now they're playing Trevor Siemian. Is Trevor Siemian? He was a Bronco, right?
Yep.
Hey. Hey. Life comes at you fast in the NFL. It really does. So thank you guys for watching or listening. Make sure to follow Cover One on Twitter at Cover One. Make sure to follow Cover One on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, wherever you get news or anything on social media. Cover One is probably there. Make sure to subscribe to Cover One Premium. There you will have access to the Cover One Premium Slack, where you can talk to a community, a burgeoning community of Buffalo Bills fans, hundreds of people over there in the Cover One Slack, just talking about the Bills, life, bunch of stuff all the time. Great place, great conversations always happening over there. And Rob and I are there. So if you want to talk to us, you can. And also you get some good premium content on the website as well. So that's it's another perk of signing up for Cover One Premium. Make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Again, use promo code Cover1. Make sure to follow Rob on Twitter at
Rob Quinn 619.
You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Bye-bye.